Have you ever wondered who hurts you the most? Enemies? No. The deepest hurt always comes from our own people. The very people we trust. The very people we have expectations from. And then a question echoes repeatedly in our minds. Why does a person do this? Sometimes someone smiles in front of you and plots against you from behind. Sometimes someone says, "I want your well-being," and in that very sentence, emotionally controls you. Sometimes someone puts you in guilt, sometimes in fear, sometimes in obligation. And the most dangerous thing is we don't even realize what's happening to us. We humans are taught one thing from childhood. Everyone is good. Everyone's intentions are right. Don't think too much. But the truth is, humans aren't good or bad. Humans are complex. This audiobook will tell you an uncomfortable truth before helping you understand others. Most humans don't know themselves. We think we're rational. We think we make logical decisions. But if this were true, why would there be so many broken relationships in the world? Why do intelligent people repeat the same mistakes again and again? Why do wise people get trapped in manipulative people's webs? The truth is, our mind deceives us. Our emotions blind us. And our ego doesn't let us see the truth. When someone hurts us, we say, "This is a bad person." But when we hurt someone, we say, "My situation was different. I was helpless." This is human nature. You have two minds inside you. One that thinks, one that reacts. The problem is, the reactive mind is faster. It fears, it gets angry, it feels jealous, it wants validation. And the rational mind? That comes later, when the damage is already done. This audiobook won't teach you that everyone is bad. Rather, it will teach you why people manipulate, why people lie to themselves, what people do for power, attention, and control. And most importantly, how you yourself get trapped in these patterns. Listen to a small story. There was a boy, very intelligent, very talented. But every time, he trusted the wrong people. Every time, someone took his credit, took advantage of his hard work. And every time, he would tell himself, "Next time this won't happen." But next time, the same thing would happen. Why? Because he hadn't understood people's nature. He had only heard their words. What a person says is often a lie. What a person does is always the truth. But we do the opposite. We trust words and ignore patterns. Why is human nature dangerous? Because a person lies to save their image, shifts blame to avoid guilt, manipulates to gain power, and belittles others to feel good about themselves. And they don't do all this consciously. This is the most dangerous thing. Most people don't want to be bad, but their fear, insecurity, ego, jealousy are hidden so deep that they themselves don't know why they're doing it. This audiobook won't make you cynical, won't make you cold. Rather, it will make you emotionally intelligent, psychologically strong. And most importantly, it will teach you to get out of control. When you start seeing patterns, manipulation doesn't work. When you start understanding motives, drama becomes powerless. And when you start seeing human nature, you don't hate people. You just learn to keep distance from them. Because in this audiobook, you'll have to fight your own ego. You'll see your own mistakes. You'll realize that many times you've done exactly what you hate. But this is growth. If you could know who genuinely cares, who just uses you, who walks around wearing a mask, and who is dangerous from inside, wouldn't your life become easier? Ahead, we'll dive into that first law because of which humans make the most mistakes. Law 1, the law of irrationality. We all live in the same illusion. I make decisions with my mind, not emotions. But the truth is the opposite. A person first feels, reacts, and then justifies their reaction with logic. Think, why did you get angry at someone? Why did you block someone? Why did you suddenly make a big decision? If you look honestly, the reason is always emotion. Logic is just the story. Inside us is an ancient brain, one that fears, protects, seeks immediate comfort. This brain fears rejection, panics at loneliness, attacks when ego is hurt. And the problem is, this brain is very fast. So fast that your rational brain keeps running behind it. That's why intelligent people also act foolishly. This is the most confusing thing. You must have seen educated people remain stuck in toxic relationships. Smart people bow down to manipulative bosses. Wise people ignore obvious red flags. Why? Because intelligence doesn't control emotions. Emotional awareness does. A person becomes irrational when their ego gets activated. Ego doesn't want to listen. Ego doesn't want to accept defeat. Ego doesn't want to admit, maybe I'm wrong. So what does ego do? It twists the truth. It makes excuses. It blames others. And most dangerously, ego makes you feel righteous. I'm right, others are wrong. I don't need to justify. Remember, a decision made in anger, a commitment made in fear, a relationship chosen in loneliness, a conflict created in ego, almost always becomes regret in the future. But in that moment, emotion convinces you that this is right. Suppose someone repeatedly disrespects you. You feel uncomfortable inside, but you tell yourself, they're not like that. I'm too sensitive. Maybe my thinking is wrong. This isn't logic. This is an attempt to avoid emotion. You don't want to see the truth because truth is painful. And this is irrationality. A person doesn't want truth. A person wants emotional comfort. If a lie makes you feel safe, the mind makes it true. If a truth makes you feel insecure, the mind rejects it. We hear what we like. We see what supports our beliefs. And what challenges our beliefs, we ignore. That's why manipulative people win with sweet words. People giving warnings seem negative, and truth-tellers are called toxic. Understand one thing. Irrational people aren't evil. They're just emotionally unaware. They're running from their insecurity, hiding their fears, projecting their pain onto others. And when you understand this, you stop reacting. The more confident a person is, the more blind they can be. I know, I understand, this won't happen to me. These very lines bring a person down first. Power makes a person more irrational because power shuts down feedback, inflates ego, reduces empathy. That's why powerful people often make the most mistakes. You can't eliminate irrationality. No person can, but you can recognize it. Whenever emotion is high, decision feels urgent, ego is hurt, or fear dominates, immediately stop. And ask yourself, if I were calm, would I make this same decision? The most intelligent move is create distance from emotion. Don't reply immediately. Don't promise immediately. Don't react immediately. Time exposes irrationality. When you understand this rule, you start arguing less, you stop trying to prove things, you stop trying to change people. Because you understand, every person operates at their emotional level. The most dangerous person isn't the one who is irrational. The most dangerous person is the one who denies their irrationality. Law 2, the law of narcissism. If a person could be understood in one word, that word would be me. What do I want? How do I look? I'm right. My feelings are important. My pain is bigger. Narcissism isn't an insult. Narcissism isn't a disease. Narcissism is a person's default setting. Every person loves themselves. The difference is just the level. Some people do it openly. some silently. Some consider themselves special. Some consider themselves victims. But at the center, there's always one thing: selfness. And this selfness breaks the most relationships, creates the most conflicts, gives birth to the most manipulation. When we hear narcissism, we think arrogant people, attention-seeking people, show-offs. But real narcissism is quite subtle. Sometimes it looks like this: why does this always happen to me? Why doesn't anyone understand me? I'm so good, yet. This is also narcissism. Every person wants something inside: attention, validation, appreciation. And when they don't get it, a person creates drama, gives guilt, asks for sympathy, or gives silent punishment. One who shows themselves as big, another who takes attention by showing themselves as small. The second is more dangerous because they say, "I'm nothing. I have no value." But inside, they want someone to lift them up and place them in the center. A narcissist uses empathy. This is very important to understand. A narcissist knows what will make you feel guilty, what will scare you, what will make you feel good. And they press those very buttons. They'll make you feel you're special, you're incomplete without me. I'm doing everything for you, as long as you keep fulfilling their need. The problem is we don't recognize narcissism, because a narcissist doesn't always behave badly. Sometimes they're very caring, sometimes very charming, sometimes very understanding. And this creates confusion. A healthy person becomes a mirror in a relationship. A narcissist wants the spotlight in a relationship. Their feelings should be discussed. Their problems should be important. Their boundaries should be respected. But when it comes to you, they become bored, change the topic, call you dramatic. As a person gets authority, followers, attention, their narcissism grows. Because now no one challenges them. No one shows them the truth. Why is a narcissist dangerous? Because they think they're right. They don't apologize. They don't take accountability. They always justify. And gradually, you start doubting yourself. Maybe my expectations are too much. Maybe I'm the problem. When a person denies your reality, invalidates your feelings, confuses you, and then says, "I'm saying this for your good," understand that narcissism is active. Self-love says, "I'm okay, and you're okay too." Narcissism says, "I'm okay, and you're okay only when you validate me." A narcissist never changes until their ego breaks. An ego only breaks when reality exposes them. What should you do? You haven't come to change the narcissist. You're not a therapist. Your job is just this: remove yourself from the center. Don't explain too much. Don't prove too much. Don't sacrifice too much. Because a narcissist considers sacrifice as entitlement. As soon as you create distance, you start seeing patterns. You start seeing manipulation. Clarity starts coming. And clarity is the narcissist's biggest enemy. A person loves their own image more than others. And the person who can hurt you to save their image will never be safe. Law 3, the law of role-playing. Before lying, a person definitely does one thing. They choose a role. Someone's role of being good, someone's of being wise, someone's of being a victim, someone's of being a martyr. And then they get so immersed in that role that they start believing it themselves. We often say, "They don't seem like that. I didn't expect this from them." But the truth is, a person does what fulfills their need. The role is whatever is useful at that time. Everywhere, home, office, relationships, friendships, social media, the same rule operates: impression management. People think, how should I look? What should people think about me? How should my image stay safe? Some people always appear very caring, look very honest, seem very religious, behave very humbly. But role doesn't mean they're the same inside. Role is just a mask, because showing the truth is risky. If a person shows their fear, they might look weak. If they show greed, they might be judged. If they show jealousy, they might lose respect. So what do? They wear a mask. The most dangerous people aren't those who appear clear. The most dangerous people are those who always appear right, who never get angry, who are never wrong, who always stay on moral high ground. Because perfection isn't human. Look carefully. When someone is criticized, when power is taken away, when ego is hurt, when control slips from hands, that's when the real person comes out. Words don't change. Tone changes. Role says, I'm not like that. Action says, this is exactly who I am. We often listen to the role and ignore the action. This is where deception begins. Some people make themselves victims in every situation. In every problem, someone else is responsible. In every conflict, they're innocent. This role isn't for sympathy, it's for control. If a person seems the same everywhere, stays the same in every mood, reacts the same in every situation, they're hiding something. A real person is inconsistent. A role is perfect. This is a very deep truth. When a situation changes, the role changes. Who was sweet yesterday becomes cold today. Why? Because now a new strategy is needed. What should you watch? When they want something, how are they? When they're refused, how are they? When they're ignored, how are they? When they get power, how are they? This is where the mask falls. Why is overtrust dangerous? Because you trust the role, not the pattern. And the role is always designed. Silence says a lot. When you stop giving help, stop agreeing, stop justifying, that's when people's real face shows. This audiobook isn't teaching you to doubt everyone. It's teaching you, look but don't trust quickly. Observe, give time, see the pressure test. How a person appears is their role. What a person becomes under pressure is their reality. Law 4, the law of compulsive behavior. People don't change. This line sounds harsh, but it's also the most liberating truth. People repeat again and again, everywhere, in every relationship. Just faces change, situations change. The pattern remains the same. You must have seen someone repeatedly chooses toxic relationships. Someone fights with their boss at every job. Someone makes themselves a victim in every friendship. Someone trusts every time and breaks. And then they say, my luck is bad. No, this isn't luck. This is a compulsive pattern. Compulsive behavior isn't a conscious choice. It's a mind shortcut. The behavior that once worked in childhood or early life, the mind considers it safe. And then that same behavior starts being used in every situation. Many people don't understand. Most of our patterns were learned when we were vulnerable, to get attention, to avoid punishment, to receive love, to avoid rejection. And we keep using that same method in adulthood, even if that method is now harming us. Understand this example. If a child learns that staying quiet means no conflict, then as an adult, they'll keep tolerating disrespect, won't be able to speak up, won't be able to set boundaries. And every time they'll say, I'm just like this. When a person says, I'm just like this, I can't change, understand they're a slave to their pattern. Change is difficult, not impossible. But first, the pattern must be visible. Compulsive people are predictable. This is a very important thing. The person who repeatedly lies, repeatedly blames, repeatedly ghosts, repeatedly controls will do the same next time too. You're not special. You're just the next situation. Why do we ignore red flags? Because we're also compulsive. If your pattern is saving, fixing, compromising, you'll see warning signs but won't take action. Because your unconscious will say, "This is all normal." Listen to this line carefully. Strong attraction is often identification of an unhealthy pattern, because familiarity feels like safety. If chaos is familiar, then calm will feel boring. Compulsive behavior doesn't hide. It shows in small gestures, shows in repeated reactions, shows clearly under pressure. If a person does the same thing every time, they'll do the same thing next time too. No matter how much empathy you show, how much you understand, until a person sees their own pattern, they won't change. And you'll get exhausted. First, recognize your own pattern. Ask yourself, what kind of people do I attract? What role do I play in every conflict? At what point do I lose myself? This question is painful, but this is where freedom begins. Breaking a pattern isn't easy because a pattern becomes identity. I'm always the giver. I adjust. I'll stay alone. But remember, the behavior that repeatedly harms you isn't a virtue. When you stop giving the same people the same reactions, the pattern weakens. And people become uncomfortable because now their script isn't working. What a person does repeatedly isn't an accident. It's their personality's signature. And the person who fears seeing their pattern also fears changing themselves. Law 5, the law of covetousness. What a person has never seems enough. What they don't have shines the brightest. Most people think greed means money, power, status. But real greed is born from comparison. As long as a person is alone, they remain calm. As soon as they see, they have it, I don't, something starts burning inside. We don't want things for ourselves. We want them seeing others. Someone's relationship, someone's lifestyle, someone's success, someone's freedom. And then the mind says, I want it too. With every scroll, someone looks better, someone has moved ahead, someone seems happier. And your mind starts considering your life as less. This is where dissatisfaction begins. Why is greed never satisfied? Because it's not a goal, it's a moving target. What was needed today becomes boring tomorrow. What was a dream today becomes baseline tomorrow. And then new comparison. Many people don't cheat because their relationship is bad. They cheat because they think maybe there's something better outside. And when they go outside, they understand the value of what was inside. But by then it's too late. When someone wants something, they wear a mask, become sweet, show patience. But as soon as they get it, their behavior changes. Because now the desire is finished. Envy says, I wish I had it too. Covetousness says, I want that exact thing. And when a person wants someone else's thing, they forget boundaries. Why do people steal credit? Because they want attention, they want recognition. And they think, if I don't have it, I'll take it. This is greed. Greed blinds a person. When desire is very strong, a person doesn't see risk, doesn't see consequences, doesn't see ethics. They just see one thing. I want it now. How to know if the person in front is greedy? Look, they always compare. They diminish others' success. They minimize your achievements. They never seem satisfied. And the biggest sign, they're not happy when you move forward. Recognizing your own greed isn't easy because we call our desires ambition. Ask yourself, why do I want this thing? If no one else is watching, would I still want it? Or am I just comparing? Contentment gives power. The person who is satisfied is difficult to manipulate because manipulation works on desire. If you don't want anything, no one can control you. Greed takes you away from the present. You can't enjoy what you have, can't see who you've become, can't feel what you've achieved. What a person didn't get seems more valuable to them than what they built with effort. Law 6, the law of short-sightedness. A person doesn't see the future. They only see today. Today's relief, today's benefit, today's comfort. And this today slowly eats their tomorrow. The human mind is built such that happiness coming immediately appears very clear. But benefit coming later seems blurry. That's why watching one more episode seems easy, but one more hour of hard work feels heavy. Winning an argument feels good, but bending to save a relationship pricks the ego. A person tells themselves, I'll adjust for now. Staying quiet is better for now. There's no need to take risk now. But when now becomes a habit, one day the person wakes up and finds themselves in a life they never consciously chose. Short-sightedness is born from fear. The future is uncertain, and uncertainty makes a person uncomfortable. So they choose known pain and run from unknown growth. This is why people remain stuck in bad jobs, can't leave toxic relationships, and cover their wrong habits saying it's okay. Comfort feels safe, feels familiar, but comfort slowly makes a person smaller. They don't grow. They just learn to tolerate, and they mistake tolerance for maturity. Short-sightedness increases even when power comes. A person thinks, let me do what I can do now. They use people, burn relationships, take respect lightly, and forget that power is temporary, but reputation always chases you. The same happens in relationships. Most relationships don't break because love ended. They break because people can't let go of one moment's ego, can't say one apology, and run from one uncomfortable truth. Instant relief feels good, but the price of long-term peace isn't understood at that time. The person who repeatedly chooses short-term betrays their future self. A person loses what they never thought deeply about saving, because they're so stuck in today that tomorrow isn't visible. Law 7, the law of defensiveness. A person isn't afraid of truth. They're afraid of the pain that comes from truth. As soon as someone points out their mistake, their mind goes into defend mode. They listen not to understand, but to protect themselves. That wasn't my intention. You're understanding it wrong. You're too sensitive. These sentences come out automatically, without thinking. Defensiveness is a reflex. It's born when ego feels threatened. A person thinks, if I admit my mistake, I'll become small. A defensive person never listens completely. They interrupt. They catch the tone. They change the topic or bring up old issues. Their goal isn't to solve the issue. Their goal is to prove themselves right. Gradually, such a person gets cut off from feedback. People around them stop telling the truth. And then they say, no one understands me. Actually, they've stopped listening. Defensiveness does the most damage in relationships. When one person repeatedly explains and the other just defends, balance breaks. One feels guilty, the other superior. This is where emotional distance begins. The trickiest thing is defensiveness sometimes appears very calm. No shouting, no fighting, just cold logic comes. But empathy disappears. Recognizing your own defensiveness is the most difficult task. If the urge to justify yourself comes immediately upon hearing criticism, understand ego has awakened. The truth is, admitting a mistake isn't weakness. It's strength. The person who can say, yes, I made a mistake grows. And the person who defends every time stays stuck right there. A person doesn't reject truth because it's wrong. Rather because truth breaks the image they've built. Law 8, Self-sabotage. A person often does the biggest damage to their own life themselves. No one pushes them. No one forces them. Yet they make decisions that later hurt them. Self-sabotage doesn't happen suddenly. It comes when a person gets very close to something, success, love, or a new level. At that moment, their inner fear awakens. The fear isn't that everything will end. The fear is that everything will change. A person thinks, if I move forward, expectations will increase. People will start watching me. They'll expect more from me. And if I fall, everyone will see. So the mind plays a trick. It turns procrastination into rest, calls overthinking intelligence, labels perfectionism as high standards. And the person tells themselves, now isn't the right time. The same happens in relationships. When someone starts getting very close, a person suddenly starts creating distance. Conversations reduce. Conflict arises without reason. Or the person makes themselves emotionally unavailable. Because closeness demands vulnerability, and vulnerability is scary. Often, self-sabotage comes from old programming. Someone once made you feel you're not enough. You were taught, don't expect too much. So the mind learned, keep yourself a bit behind so you don't get hurt too much. But the method that was once made to protect you is now stopping you. Self-sabotage isn't broken with hate, but with understanding. When you start observing yourself, at what turn do you step back? At what moment do you stop yourself? Then gradually that pattern's grip loosens. You don't harm yourself because you're weak, but because you once had to survive this way. Now the question is, do you just want to survive or truly live? Law 9, repression. A person lives burying a lot inside. Anger, envy, hatred, fear, and desires they can't even tell themselves the truth about. From childhood, we're taught, a good person is one who doesn't get angry, who doesn't feel jealousy, who always thinks right. So we push our bad thoughts inside. We say, I'm not like that. But the truth is, what's suppressed doesn't end. It just goes silent. The suppressed part slowly makes its own way. Sometimes it comes out as sarcasm. Sometimes it becomes passive aggression. Sometimes such anger bursts out that no one understands the context. And then the person says, I don't know what happened to me. The most dangerous are those who show themselves as too good, who say they never feel jealousy, never get angry, never think badly. Actually, those very people are most afraid of their shadow. When a person doesn't accept their inner darkness, they start seeing it in others. Who is jealous themselves calls others jealous. Who is manipulative themselves accuses others of manipulation. This is called projection. Repression makes a person unpredictable because they don't know themselves what's accumulating inside. And who doesn't know themselves unknowingly hurts others. This doesn't mean a person should become bad. It means become whole. See your anger. Acknowledge your jealousy. Don't run from your dark thoughts. Because the emotion that has been seen comes under control. And what stays suppressed definitely bursts someday. The attempt to become good often makes a person dangerous. The courage to be bad makes a person peaceful. Law 10, envy. Envy never comes out openly. It doesn't shout, doesn't attack. It smiles, compliments, and keeps comparing inside. Envy doesn't come from strangers. It always comes from people close by, from friends, from siblings, from colleagues, and sometimes from those who say, I'm happy for you. When a person sees someone else moving forward and the pain of feeling small rises inside them, that's where envy is born. It doesn't come from lack. It comes from humiliation. An envious person can't hate directly, so their behavior is confusing. They congratulate, but there's no warmth in the voice. They praise but add, luck was good. Envy is often passive. No one causes harm openly. Just stops supporting. Doesn't tell even when there's opportunity. Isn't available when needed. And still says, I'm right here. The biggest truth is envy gets faster with success. As long as you're average, everything's fine. As soon as you move forward, some people's behavior starts changing. They become distant or cold. Recognizing envy is necessary, but more necessary is seeing your own envy. If someone's success pricks you inside, if you want to show their hard work as less, honestly admit it. This is envy. Envy doesn't end by suppressing it. Understanding it weakens it. When you come out of comparison and focus on your direction, envy loses its poison. The person who can't be happy at your happiness will never be completely safe in your life, no matter how close they are. Law 11, Grandiosity. A person doesn't need an enemy to fall. Their own delusion is enough. What is grandiosity? Grandiosity doesn't mean considering yourself better. It means considering yourself an exception, above rules, finding feedback unnecessary, and believing what happens to you will be different. This very thinking blinds a person. Power gives birth to grandiosity. As a person gets success, attention, followers, authority, a voice grows inside. I'm something special. And this is where mistakes begin. Hearing praise, a person feels, I'm on the right path. But if praise doesn't turn into challenge, it stops growth. Because no one questions, no one shows mistakes, no one speaks the truth. When something goes wrong, they say, people couldn't understand, the world isn't at my level, they couldn't handle my vision. But never say, maybe I was wrong. When a person only hears yes, only hears praise, only stays surrounded by supporters, reality disappears. And without reality, a person becomes dangerous. The more grandiosity, the less empathy. Because when you consider yourself the center, others' feelings become background. Such people ignore partners' needs, call boundaries drama, consider criticism disrespect, and say, you're not on my level, when actually they're running from accountability. Grandiosity brings a person down gradually. First, small warnings are ignored. Then small mistakes repeat. Then comes a big fall whose shock is very deep. Reality always returns. This is the biggest rule. Reality can be delayed, not denied. The person who starts considering themselves too big finds themselves very alone one day. How to save yourself? Don't run from feedback. Question yourself. Listen even after success. And remember, you're also human. Humility isn't weakness. Humility is insurance. What is true confidence? True confidence says, I can learn, I can be wrong, I can grow. Grandiosity says, I don't need to learn. The person who starts considering themselves above everyone first gets cut off from the ground. And who gets cut off from the ground doesn't avoid falling. Law 12, Gender rigidity. A person is very quickly taught how they should be, how they should think, what's right to feel, and what's wrong. This isn't just about men and women. This is about those fixed roles that society puts on a person, and the person gradually considers them their identity. When someone is told being strong is necessary, they start hiding their weakness. When someone is told, don't be too emotional, they suppress their sensitivity. And when repeatedly told this isn't for you, a person starts doubting themselves. Gender rigidity doesn't let a person be flexible. They start considering some parts within themselves as wrong. And the part that's considered wrong gradually becomes fear. A person doesn't change from fear. From fear, they just play a role. Many people aren't unhappy because their life is difficult, rather because they weren't allowed to become who they are inside. Every moment they think, if I do this, what will people say? Gender rigidity also silently poisons relationships. A person says, I'm just like this. But many times this isn't truth. This is fear. Fear of changing. Fear of opening up. Fear of being vulnerable. Real balance comes when a person gives space to strength and softness, logic and emotion, assertion and empathy inside themselves. Because a person isn't one color. When a person thinks outside labels, they become uncomfortable for society. But that very discomfort becomes their freedom. Gender rigidity makes a person feel safe, but not alive. Freedom is a bit scary, but that's what makes a person whole. Labels don't give identity. Labels draw boundaries. And the person who considers these boundaries as truth lives half their own life. Law 13. Aimlessness. A person is most lost when they're doing something every day but don't know why they're doing it. Aimlessness doesn't look like laziness. Often it wears a very hard-working face. Running around all day, work, responsibilities, people's expectations, everything keeps going. But at night, a strange emptiness's voice comes. Because the person is moving but in no direction. When someone doesn't have their own purpose, they start fitting into others' purposes. What society says seems right. What family wants becomes life. And gradually, a person forgets to recognize their own voice. Aimlessness gives rest. Because if there's no goal, there's no fear of failure either. No big question, no big risk. Just pass the day. But this very rest gradually turns into regret. Because time keeps moving, and a person moving without direction keeps getting left behind. Such people often live watching others' lives. Sometimes they envy, sometimes they imitate. Sometimes they're inspired by someone's success. Sometimes they get irritated by that same success. Because they don't have their own compass. Purpose isn't some big dream. Sometimes it's just this much. What kind of person don't you want to become? Or in what direction don't you want to go anymore? This is where clarity is born. When a person gets even a little direction, their behavior starts changing. They stay away from distraction. They don't react to everything. Because now they have something to lose, their direction. Aimlessness makes a person part of the crowd. Purpose can also make a person alone, but that very loneliness makes them real. The person who themselves doesn't know where they're going, no matter how far they reach, will remain empty inside. Law 14, conformity. A person wanders most when they have no direction. They keep moving but don't know where. Today, most people are busy in work, in phone, in social media, in people's expectations. But being busy hides being aimless. You get tired but don't move forward. When someone asks, what do you want? There's no answer. Because aimlessness is safe. If there's no aim, there's no failure either. But without aim, life just becomes reaction. When you yourself don't know what you want, someone else decides. Society, family, trends, loud people. And you gradually lose your direction. An aimless person lives watching others' lives. They compare, they imitate, they stay confused. Because their own compass is broken. Finding purpose isn't thinking's work. It's courage's work. Because purpose means leaving some things, angering some people, closing some paths. Aimlessness keeps open for everyone. Purpose is selective. When there's no direction inside, there's chaos outside. Unnecessary conflicts, gossip, emotional ups and downs, attention-seeking. These are all symptoms of aimlessness. Imp doesn't mean lifelong mission. Sometimes just knowing which direction you're in today is enough. Clarity builds gradually. When a person knows where they need to go, they avoid distraction, ignore toxic people, don't waste time, because they know what everything costs. If no one judged, what would I choose? If there was no fear, which direction would I go? What am I running from? These are uncomfortable questions, but these wake you up. Today's confusion becomes tomorrow's regret, because time won't stop, and without direction, time won't leave you. The person who themselves doesn't know where they're going won't be happy wherever they reach. Law 15, the law of conformity. A person can tolerate being alone and wrong, but not alone and different. This is why most people turn toward the crowd. Why is conformity so powerful? Because a person's oldest fear is being left alone. The fear of being alone is older than hunger. So what does the mind do? It says, do what everyone's doing, believe what everyone believes, say what everyone's saying. Look at history. Wrong decisions were made by crowds. Hatred was spread by crowds. And later they said, everyone was doing the same. Responsibility disappears when we hide behind the crowd. How does conformity look? Suppressing your opinion, laughing at an uncomfortable joke, not challenging the wrong thing, agreeing just so you don't look different. This all seems small, but identity gets worn down here. Social approval is an addiction. Likes, validation, acceptance, these all give dopamine. And for dopamine, a person sells their thinking. The crowd doesn't want nuance, doesn't want depth. It wants simple enemies, simple answers. And the person who gives simple answers becomes a leader, even if they're wrong. Original thinking doesn't flourish in crowds, because originality demands risk, demands criticism, demands loneliness. And most people don't want to pay this price. Powerful people like crowds because crowds don't question, just follow. And when everyone follows, even wrong starts seeming normal. Ask yourself, do I change my opinion because the majority thinks differently? Do I stay quiet because speaking would be awkward? Do I leave my authenticity for approval? This question is uncomfortable but necessary. Standing alone demands strength. Being different isn't easy. People will call you arrogant, difficult, odd. But remember, the crowd can give you comfort, not identity. Conformity isn't completely wrong. The problem is when you start cutting yourself to fit everywhere. The person who loses themselves walking with the crowd gets lost in the crowd itself at the end. Law 16, the law of fickleness. A person says, I don't change like this. Actually, they change very quickly, because a person operates not from principles, but from emotions and convenience. What is fickleness? Fickleness means what seems right today is right. What's beneficial today is truth. What's in the mood today is the decision. Tomorrow, mood changed, stance changed. Why do people suddenly change? Because fear gets activated inside them. New benefit appears, new fear or new greed comes. And the person tells themselves, I'm evolving. Sometimes they're not evolving. They're just surviving. People talk a lot about loyalty, but loyalty shows when benefit is less, risk is more, and pressure is high. Here, most people flip. Fickleness becomes faster with the crowd. Today, whatever is trending, everyone's with that. Tomorrow, trend changed, everyone there. Truth becomes irrelevant. Belonging more important. Today, care, tomorrow, distance. Today, promises, tomorrow, silence. Today, you're important. Tomorrow, I need space. And you think, what did I do wrong? Often the answer is nothing. What changed was inside them, not you. Fickle people don't give clarity. They don't speak directly, don't admit openly. They do slow fade. Because clarity brings responsibility, and responsibility feels heavy to fickle people. A fickle person uses big words. Always, never, definitely. But words' weight doesn't match their behavior. Consistency is real character. Character is built not from speech, but from consistency. The person who stays the same under pressure doesn't change values when benefit changes. That person is trustworthy. Recognize your own fickleness. Honestly ask, do I change stance seeing convenience? Do I step back when it gets uncomfortable? Do I leave commitments to feelings? Self-awareness reduces fickleness. How to deal? Don't keep too many expectations. See patterns, not words. Judge on consistency. And don't emotionally overinvest. Because fickle people are close today, not tomorrow. In this world, emotionally stable people are few. And that's why their value is more. The person who changes with every season is never anyone's. Law 17. The law of aggression. A person fears their own anger the most. So they hide it in sweet language, in civilized behavior, in the mask of I'm calm. When we think aggression, we think fighting, abusing violence. But real aggression is often silent. Passive aggression, sarcasm, deliberate neglect, emotional withdrawal. These are all control methods. Where there's power and balance, aggression is hidden. Boss ignores employee. Partner gives silent treatment. Parent controls with guilt. And everyone says, I'm not doing anything. But damage is already done. The anger that wasn't spoken doesn't end. It becomes tone, becomes delays, becomes excuses, becomes indifference. And the other person stays confused. Aggressive people show themselves as victims. This is the trickiest part. Very aggressive people show themselves as oppressed. People don't understand me. Wrong always happens to me. But actually, they fear losing control. Some people hide anger behind morality. They say, I'm speaking the truth. I'm fighting for what's right. But there's no empathy in the tone. When proving right becomes more important than the person, aggression is active. When someone is dissatisfied with themselves and the person in front is moving forward, aggression becomes subtle. Cold reaction to success, lack of support, indirect criticism. This is all a mix of envy plus aggression. Aggressive people test your limits, make you feel uncomfortable, then say, you're too sensitive. This is where manipulation starts. This is uncomfortable but necessary. Ask yourself, do I turn silence into punishment? Do I hurt with sarcasm? Do I create distance for control? If yes, aggressiveness is inside. Healthy anger says, this is hurting me. Aggressiveness says, I'll make you feel it. The difference is an intention. How to deal with aggressiveness. Don't take guilt. Don't argue. Keep boundaries clear. And if pattern repeats, create distance. Aggression can't be justified. The person who doesn't accept their anger takes it out on others. And who takes out anger on others is never safe. Law 18. The law of death denial. A person can accept everything except one truth, that they're going to die. How does death denial work? We don't think about death, we postpone it. Not now, we'll think later. It won't happen to me. And in this very postponement, we forget to live. When a person accepts that time is unlimited, they postpone relationships, postpone dreams, postpone speaking truth, postpone necessary decisions. Because they think there's lots of time. Fear of death often turns into fear of life. Fear of taking risks, fear of showing love, fear of speaking truth, fear of standing alone. Because every genuine choice reminds of mortality. Many people chase power, status, fame so they feel, I'll be remembered, I won't disappear. But all this doesn't defeat death. It's just distraction. The person who sees death doesn't remain petty. They don't get entangled in trivial fights. They don't control people because they know time is expensive. When a person runs from death, they search for approval, save image, play roles, compromise with truth. Because authenticity reminds of being finite. The thought of death isn't depressing. It's liberating. Because then questions change. What will people say? No. Is this meaningful or not? Is it safe or not? No. Is it true or not? When a person asks, if I had less time, what would I let go and what would I hold on to? This is where authenticity begins. When you know everything is temporary, you don't hold grudges, don't drag ego, don't suppress emotions. Because every conversation could be the last. The person who thinks we'll see later is easily manipulated. Because they don't understand urgency. Awareness brings urgency. Urgency brings clarity. Sit quietly sometime today. If this year were the last, from whom would I ask forgiveness? To whom would I speak truth? What would I leave? What would I start? The person who accepts death stops fearing life. And who doesn't fear life doesn't remain in anyone's control. Conclusion. The purpose of these 18 laws wasn't to make you cynical. Their purpose was to wake you up, teach you to see, and make you free. To understand human nature, so you don't live in deception, don't live in fear, and don't live in illusion. If you want such deep psychological audiobooks and videos, subscribe to the channel right now and definitely press the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. And yes, definitely share this video with that person who needs to hear this the most. We'll meet in the next video with another truth. Until then, stay aware and stay free.